Hello, fifth graders. It was really good to see you all this morning, or at least most of you. So we're still talking about force in science right now. So I was going to go ahead and go over lesson 73 with you. And this is all about magnetism and magnetic fields. And remember, you can either print out that booklet that I posted on the classroom page, or you can just pull it up and read it on your screen. And if you have Adobe Acrobat, you can actually highlight it right on your screen. Okay, so it's up to you which way you want to use, but at least kind of follow along with me so you're understanding the science concepts. Okay, so today we're going to talk about magnetism and magnetic fields. Last time we talked about newtons and what those meant and how weight is measured. So we are going to turn to page are we on? Page 6. Okay, and we're going to talk about magnetism. And it's really kind of a bummer that we can't do this this experiment together in class, because this is usually one of the favorites. But basically what we would have done, I have this little machine in the classroom that levitates with magnets. So basically it's got this little bar in the middle, and then it's got this thing that looks like it's going to hold it up with two little almost like field goals at the end, and the bar will just float in the middle of the air because it's magnetic. It has these two poles at each end that are magnetized, so it just kind of levitates in the middle of the air. It's kind of cool. And you can spin it and it'll spin and then stay in midair. So that's kind of a cool experiment. Hopefully I'll get a chance to show you that sometime. But it's using a magnetic levitator is what it's called. Okay, so on page 6, we're going to talk about magnetism. And paragraph 1 says, magnetism, a form of electromagnetic force, is a non-contact force caused by the spin and orbit of electrons within atoms. The area in which magnetism can affect matter is called a magnetic field. Any object or material that produces a magnetic field is called a magnet. Okay? So in the first sentence, I want you to highlight the word magnetism. Magnetism. Remember, this is a type of electromagnetic force. It's non-contact. That means it doesn't have to touch the object that it's attracted to. It can still pull an object that has a magnetic field in it without actually touching it. Okay? And then at the end of the second sentence, highlight the words magnetic field. So that's the area in which magnetism can affect matter. A magnetic field. The end of the second sentence. Okay, and then the definition of a magnet is any object or material that produces a magnetic field. So at the end of the last sentence, highlight the word magnet. So you should have highlighted magnetism, magnetic field, and magnet. Okay, so there's something called a lodestone that is a piece of mineral magnetite that is magnetized, and it's a natural magnet all by itself. Most lodestones are found near the Earth's surface. These pieces of magnetite most likely became magnetized after being struck by lightning. That's kind of a cool mineral if you ever find one of those. Okay, so paragraph 2, we're going to talk about the poles of magnets. So paragraph 2, the ends of a magnet are called poles. The magnetic field of a magnet is strongest at its poles. All magnets have a north pole and a south pole. If a magnet is cut into pieces, each piece will have a north pole and a south pole. But the strength of the magnetic fields of the smaller magnets will be less than the original. So the bigger it is, the stronger it is also. Okay, so at the end of the first sentence, highlight the word poles. And it's going to be strongest at those poles, not so much in the middle, but at the poles. And if you cut it into pieces, each piece has its own two poles still. And in paragraph 3, we're going to talk about how the magnetic field of one can affect another. So you probably already know this, at least if you've ever played with magnets of any type, but it's going to be opposites attract, okay? We're going to get into that. So paragraph 3. Magnets are affected by the magnetic fields of other magnets. The north pole of one magnet is attracted to the south pole of another magnet. Like poles of magnets repel one another. Magnetic levitation occurs when magnets repel one another. So that's how that levitating machine I was telling you about works. It's because it's got like poles. Okay, so if you try to put the south pole of one magnet together with the south pole of another magnet, they're going to repel each other. So they're going to push away from each other is what repel means. But if you have the north pole of one and the south pole of another, they're going to attract each other. So those two magnets will stick together. They'll attract. But same, they will repel. Okay? So at the beginning of the last sentence, highlight the words magnetic levitation. Levitation just means it's kind of like floating. Okay? And if you have some magnets at home, you could test this out. Refrigerator magnets don't really work as well as the magnets that are like blue on one end and red on another, because then you can really see which pole is which and see how they attract and repel each other. But if you have kind of like a bar magnet and another bar magnet, you can see which ends attract each other and which repel, even if they're not labeled in any way. If you put them together and you know they repel, you know you have two of the same poles. But if they attract, you know they have opposite poles together. So that's something you could try at home. Okay. And like I said, we would have done an experiment with all the magnets. There is a video that you can watch on the Nancy Larson website. It's called How to Make the Classic Magnetic Levitator. So some of you students that are extra into science maybe want to make a levitator of your own. They are pretty cool. I would suggest doing it even if you're bored and want something to do. So if you go to that Nancy Larson website and log in with the username and password I gave you, it'll show you how to make one of your own. Okay? And that's really the whole lesson about magnets. So the thing to keep in mind is, what is magnetism? What's a magnetic field? And then how do they attract and how do they repel? So you will see on your review which poles of the magnets are going to attract each other and which are going to repel each other. Okay? So I hope you have a good rest of your day.